Here we can see a bunch of volumetric billboards. We're going to implement those today and also know a little bit better what are their pros and cons and how they are related to shell texturing. Also, if you want to know better what shell texturing is, you should check out Acerola's video on the topic. Link will be in the description. That's what shell texturing looks like. A stack of planes trying to represent a volume. The problem is, when we tilt our camera, we can see the gaps between planes, and that doesn't look good at all. If we sample a 3D object with that stack of planes, we'll have a bunch of slices, and that's what shell texturing is. So here we can see how that sphere would look like if it was made out of shell texturing. However, we're going to implement billboards, so those quads are always going to face the camera. First thing we need is a stack of planes and an empty shader. Afterwards, we're going to create our X and Y coordinates by using the UVs of our quads. And then we offset those UVs by 0.5, so they are centered. Then we pass those UVs to a vector tree, and we calculate the Z coordinates by applying a forward offset of 0.5 and then subtracting a small amount backwards. And we do that to each quad. We divide the square root of 3 by double the amount of planes we have in our geometry. And then we pass this XYZ coordinate system to a vector 4, so we can multiply and transform accordingly, so we generate a billboard. And then we multiply by the particle size, so we can control the size of our billboard as well. Next, we have to pass a 3D texture into our shader. A 3D texture can be represented by a stack of images, a bunch of slices of a 3D object. In this case, I've created this in Magica Voxel. So we just apply that, and I set it to nearest because I'm working with a pixel art stylized game, so I don't want blurry filtering. In Magica Voxel you can click Slice, bottom right, and save your PNG stack. Then in GODOT you can click your texture in the file system, and in the import menu change to texture 3D and change the number of slices according to your texture. So in my case I have a 16 by 16 by 16 voxels model in a stack of 16 textures. Now I'm going to create a variant so I can pass the coordinates to my fragment shader. I'll transform those coordinates a little bit to finally use them to sample my 3D texture. And I'll set my albedo to that texture. And as you can see, we have no transparency yet. We can see the texture is here, and it is repeating and with no transparency. To fix that, we have to clamp the texture in X, Y, and Z, so it is within a cube and not repeated. And then we have to set the alpha of the model to the alpha of the texture. Otherwise, if it is out of bounds, alpha is just 0. And we configure the alpha scissor threshold, so everything above 0.5 will be rendered, below will be discarded. And here you can see the results. If we get too close, we'll be able to see the planes, but from a distance it's perfectly fine. As you can see here, this technique still has a few problems, like the lighting, and also, well, if you get too close to it, you will be seeing a lot of jagged lines all around. And there are a few ways we can improve that. I'll leave the full shader in the description where you can see how it can be improved. And with those improvements, we can see the final trees using this technique to render a bunch of leaves. Bear in mind that there's a lot of overdraw with this technique, so it's expensive, and also it could be done by using a single quad and raymarching to march through the 3D texture, but the performance is way better if we do it this way than with raymarching. And that's all. Thank you and bye bye.